Good evening. We are picking up roughly where we left off in the Pantheon, or in the God Home where the Pantheons are. If memory serves, I just unlocked the 4th Pantheon. So I may as well go give that one a swing. Pantheon of the Night. Right, I made it to the end, and then I got bodied. I'll simply try it again. If need be, I will go out of my way to practice Pure Vessel. But with any luck, I'll just beat him on first try. There's also a definite element of needing to warm back up that's at play here. I'm taking a bunch of very silly hits. I will say, Lost Kin is definitely a lot easier when you have quick focus. And Shade Cloak, among other things. I wonder if the Dream Nail would make her run. I might be able to farm soul off of her. By her, I mean no eyes. Not doing practice first, this is practice. The best way to practice is by doing. Oh, my bones. And she's dead. Okay, so with Trader Lord, if I'm gonna... Whoops, Shade Cloak through him. I actually need to do it after he started dashing, because if I do it while he's stationary, he's actually too fat to get through. I just had a thought, is the kin really lost if I found it here? And he's dead. Definitely a lot easier when you have an upgraded nail. And like nose patterns and such. She takes no time at all. I thought that she teleported away after every hit, but she actually lets me hit her more than once. And he's dead. I still think that this, like, BGM reminds me of, like, the Trauma Center X Operation theme. It's like the choir in the background. It's not quite like JRPG tier. Like, it wouldn't be out of place in a JRPG, but, like, normally JRPG, like, boss tracks use choirs as, like, lyrics rather than an instrument, if that makes sense. Also, I should patch myself up. I wonder if I should try switching to a more spell-focused build. Like, rather than nail damage, I like focus on, soul regeneration. And, like, spell potency. It'd be fun. Though I'm not at all used to playing that way. Mistakes were made. More than once. More than twice. Yeah, I definitely need practice against all the bosses, not just Pure Vessel. Just for funsies, I'm going to try swapping over to a more spell-focused spell. Definitely would want Shaman's Stone for that. Soul Catcher and Soul Eater are both appealing. I'm not sure if Soul Eater is worth the extra notch cost. Quick Slash would be great for generating soul, because it's based on hit, I believe. Spell Twister seems inexpensive. We'll go with Soul Catcher, because if I go with these three, I can't afford Soul Eater. And that leaves me with one. What can I do with one? Sprint Master, Grub Song. Thundercrest, I think that one causes me to emit damaging clouds as I move. It would kind of suck to not have quick focus, so maybe instead what I do is I take off Spell Twister, as reducing spell cost and reducing soul generation is kind of doing the same thing twice if you think about it. So maybe I do that and I do quick focus instead. Alternately, I could go all in on minions. That could be fun. Oh, but Nailmaster's Glory. If I did Nailmaster's Glory, I could focus more on nail arts, because their whole thing is that they're like better in spell builds. If I took off Quick Slash, I could do Spell Twister, Nailmaster Glory. Let's try that. That seems fun. We'll see what happens. If I consistently get my butt kicked, I might go back to the earlier Pantheons and try putting on some bindings instead. Need to try and remember to use spells as DPS this time. I got very used to Quick Slash. I can definitely see the appeal of this, but I kind of, perhaps entirely out of familiarity, kind of already missed the melee build. In hindsight, perhaps, rather than switching to a spell build, like literally in Godhome, I should try doing a spell focus playthrough at some point. I was not feeling that. But it's worth experimenting, I think. Maybe I do Sharp Shadow instead? Because then my dashes can cause damage as well. Or I could try going for like a full minion build, that could be fun. I usually like playing summoners. Ghost here doesn't really have that many minion options, but they've got a non-zero number. He's dead. Yeah, the Quick Slashes definitely feel better with my existing muscle memory. For a second I was like, oh, I should go back to the Kingdom's Edge and learn that one nail art that I didn't learn. But then I remember that I did learn it. It's like, right, that happened. Or she learned a thingy for Gore, he just like me for real. learn and then forget things all the time.
そう
Though every now and then I go back and I like reference my old notes and I'm like, oh wait, I do know this thing. That's super cool. I should do that. Other times I'm like, who wrote these? Why are they on my device? And he's dead. I got caught, unfortunately. I remember reading somewhere that, like, when he's submerged, I can use Descending Dark to get him out of the ground, but I'm not sure which, like, version of him being submerged that refers to. Need to be a little bit faster on those reaction dashes. Fun fact, the most recent time that I can remember playing volleyball, I actually got hit in the face by the ball. I was wearing glasses, and the glasses kind of like started out like this, you know, in typical glasses shape, and then the ball hit me and they ended up shaped kind of like this. I don't know how well it's coming through. They were not wearable after that. For the record, I was fine, just a little discombobulated. Also, I couldn't see, but like, that was true before I got hit by the ball. You always avoided getting near the court? Same. I just didn't have a choice in this instance. It was one of those do it or you won't graduate type things. Participation is mandatory. And then I grew up and I became a VTuber, so one might say that I was not very physically educated. Honestly, with a name like physical education, you'd expect them to like teach you something, but at least in my instance, they really didn't. Like that very easily, like, I should probably not try to heal myself during this fight. Like that class very easily could have been like a here's how to like take care of yourself and like use your body right kind of class, and it just wasn't. Like, honestly, now that I say it out loud, I really feel like there's merit to combining physical education and health as, like, classes. Japan did that when you went to school there? Oh, that sounds really cool. Did you do that as like a university like aged student, or like as a public school age student? Like, not to be a weeb, but that just seems like a substantially smarter way of doing things. Formative years? Nice. Like, I know JP School is not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but like, it does seem to have a lot of really good ideas. I just tried to duck under the spell. I don't think that's actually a thing for most cases. And I was gonna say he's dead, but he's actually not. He was just having a laugh. I literally jumped into that for no reason. I did it for this whole Tyrant's enrichment. He's gonna try and take me out. And then he's gonna telefrag me. And now he's dead for real. Pardon me? Alright, this guy. Very cool looking. When somebody breaks their way out of something as an introduction, like, you know it's serious. Like, if a boss fight starts by, like, a chained up thing, like breaking the chains, like, you know you're in for a hard time. Right, and Pure Vessel hurt. That said, now that I can actually reach it, I should probably practice it. Yeah, I kind of failed to respect the fact that he deals 2 hearts of damage with each swing. Here we are. Mighty God of Nothingness. I do have quick focus, I believe. Given how precise my movement kind of wants to be for this fight, I was gonna say maybe steady body could actually be worth using, but then I'm like, wait, no, this attack, the one that just happened, is literally the only one where steady body would actually be good. Oh, he's channeling, and I'm dead. Can't believe True Basil stole the idea of dealing 2 masks from Silksong. I mean, that's what she gets. She tried to shank me in Green Path when we first met. That was very cheeky, but I got away with it. And he got me on the backswing, as one does. This is fine. I do respect the aura farm, but I kinda wish I could get back into the fight just a little bit faster. That said, I feel like I'm beginning to learn his tells. For the most part. It's kind of the same issue as Nightmare King Grim, where if you stop to parse what he's doing, it's too late. You just kind of have to, like, do your best to conclude what he's attempting to do and just, like, move immediately. At least at my reaction speeds. Maybe there's somebody out there with, like, incredibly caffeinated eyeballs that can just, like, react to everything that he does. He exploded. You have to, like, learn to move on instinct. Yeah, like, I feel like that kind of thing is probably common in, like, any kind of, like, physical endeavor. And, like, even though, like, gaming isn't exactly what one might think of as physical— oh, that's a new move. Even though gaming isn't exactly something that one might think of as physical, like, I still do need to, like, move my hands, so it probably follows. Basically, what I'm saying is that if Goku played Hollow Knight, he would have unlocked Ultra Instinct way sooner. Goku walled by Grossmother? Nah, he would, like, deliberately, like, consume an infected globule out of the assumption that it tasted like oranges. Your vessel doesn't do the Radiance Scream? Yeah, because this is before it lost control of the Radiance. That's what makes it pure. Oh, my bones. I'm pure too, a pure and innocent maiden. Yes, also no voice to scream. No will to break, except for the part where it got its will broken. Tarnished by an idea instilled. Given that he's got a bunch of like light-themed attacks that are like very similar aesthetically to what the Radiance does, I presume that at this point in time it's got perfect control over the power. Damn it! Perfect control over the powers of the Radiance. It's like they're white instead of golden, but like they're the same texture. White Palace themed, also potentially true. It could be White Palace magic. I'm kind of taking it as like it's got radiant powers, it's just got them under control like a Jinchuriki. Before losing control, like a Jinchuriki. True, it could also be like proper Pale King magic. Like magic taught by the Pale King rather than like the snail stuff that that Ghost learns. Because I believe all the player learnable spells are taught by snails. Or inherited from snails. I will say I am quite grateful that they let you practice against a single boss. Spell? Yep, spell. Slashes. Stab. Ground spikes, stab. Ground spikes. Spell. Underestimated my own power, got hit for it. I hesitated for a split second and took a hit. Yeah, so if I see him go back like that, he's either going to do like a lunge or the spell. If I jump first, from there, I have enough time to parse which attack it is, I think. I had enough time to parse, I just didn't push the dodge button. I have to remember to look at him while dodging them. The spell circles. That backswing is killer. Oh, that's a new one. Not sure how to handle that. I chose poorly. Sound effects pack way to make room for the screen that doesn't appear. I'll try to listen for that. Yeah, I think I kind of get what you mean. You know what else I just thought? All the, like, white effects are reminding me a lot of Ori, which is another really good game that I like quite a lot, and I played before I started streaming. So it's... oh, I gotta dash out that. It's been long enough since I played Ori that I could probably play it again on stream and not, like, know everything. I also never played Will-O-the-Wisps, which is the sequel to Ori. For that one, I simply obligingly impaled myself upon his horns. They do look quite sharp. I misread that, but it didn't matter because I got lucky. Technically, if I end up in, Floor Spike Jail, I should either be healing or charging a nail art. I was not, in fact, short enough to sneak underneath that one. I do feel like I'm getting better at this. Like, I'm not losing and being like, oh, what could I have done there? I got every tool that I need, I just need to put the reps in, so to speak. I am grateful that I don't have to do the entire gauntlet every time. Also, I'm pretty sure that the floor spikes is the only thing that follows the jump, so if I see that, I should, like, mentally prepare for this. What country will I be representing? I've forgotten the context, but probably Canada. Oh, never mind, he can jump without doing floor spikes. He just didn't do it that time. Oh, I beat him. Nice. And then he exploded. Now I just gotta do that, in practice. Let's try that again, just to make sure that it wasn't a fluke. Or a marm. Yeah, we would not want that run to be a marm. Hesitate it. And this is why you don't just win once and call it a day. Actually, I kind of do that a lot, so I really shouldn't talk like I know what I'm talking about. I was gonna say, imagine if I could learn that parry, but like, I technically can parry. Just not in the way that, like, Hollow Knight can. Okay, so that is a healing spot if I get lucky, but if it decides to drop one on me, I get punished. So technically I should not think of that as a healing opportunity, since it isn't, like, consistently safe. Or is it? Hold on, are they, like, consistently spaced away from him? I'll have to try and keep an eye out for that. And he's dead. Alright, that's really not so bad. I feel like I could do that in practice now. Or... you know what I mean. Like, in practice, in the I'm not practicing it kind of way. English is fun. Thank goodness I did not wipe to Enraged Guardian after beating Pure Vessel twice. Now I see this, and Lost Kin has like a very similar moveset to Pure Vessel. Like, for obvious reasons, Pure Vessel feels like a much more refined version of, like, this guy. It's kind of cool that they can, like, give thematically similar movesets to things. Yep, they are siblings. Both siblings, not even half siblings. Oh, almost got spiked. Did get spiked. Worth it. And she's dead. I do think it's kind of cool how, if nothing else, No Eyes was actually able to identify the infection vector and immunize herself and her followers to it, even if it was kind of gruesome. That's interesting. There's like a spacing I can use on this guy where even if he throws it at me, I knock it away. I did not dodge those spikes on purpose, but it worked out. Is triumphantly cried out once more. And I cried out not in triumph but in pain, because I'm getting smacked by dung. And he's dead. I think after this fight is a rest, so I can just kind of berserk. Yes, I can. I don't need to beat him cleanly, I just need to beat him. Should I swap up, or swap out my stuff for the Hollow Knight fight? I wish, because if I did that, what would I do? I think it's probably best to keep a consistent loadout. Oh wait. That comes later. Oh, but wait, the antechamber before the Hollow Knight fight doesn't, let you swap, doesn't let you swap charms. So that would have been the place to swap it out. I do not have time to Dream Nail him twice. What? He was like, you don't have time to Dream Nail me once. He did it again. Well, now he's dead. I'll just file that one under well, alright then. This, I believe, is the guy that the Hollow Knight follows. And he's dead. I was wrong. A lot of these guys, as soon as they're off screen, I legitimately forget that they exist entirely. My mind just went, the worst she can say is no. Yeah, as soon as you leave my field of view, I kind of forget that you exist. And he's dead. And he's also dead. Alright, Soul Tyrant. I forgot that he existed. I did not hit the dash button, I hit the quick cast button. But it worked out. Yeah, I do remember people being like, oh, Soul Tyrant, he's like really, really difficult to beat. And I did have trouble with him at first, to be fair. And he's not dead. Now he's dead. You think it's more annoying than hard? I think now that I know what his shenanigans are, he's not too bad, but I definitely had trouble with him at first. At least his base form. Especially with, like, the stomping. Alright, Pure Knight, just like in rehearsal. Specifically the takes where, like, I beat your ass, not the other way around. Hey, thanks. Backswing. span is very wide, which has consequences for me. Which is weird for a man so rail thin. Actually, I shouldn't say man. The Hollow Knight and the Vessel are both genderless. This imposing friend. Yeah, Hornet's not a vessel, she's only half god. She's half god, half spider. And he's dead. Well, that wasn't too bad with a bit of practice. I did it! Oh, hi there. This is a little awkward. Oh. Oh, right, her. Soul and Shade complete the Pantheon of the Night. That wasn't too bad. We are going to take a 5-minute break here. Please use this time to refill your beverage, go to the bathroom. Anything that would take you about 5 minutes. I will see you shortly. Oh, whoops. I accidentally closed my bot instead of minimizing it. To try and remember and paraphrase what I said, it was more or less, and I'm back. And then when, like, the Radiance screamed at me, I was like, oh, that sounded really menacing. Let's see. Okay, I believe you can only get through this if you have the Void Heart, which is kind of unfortunate because it means that you can't use the best charm in the game to do this particular Pantheon. Pantheon of Hallownest, seek the kingdom's forgotten light. It's not good, then why did they have to explicitly ban it to not trivialize the hardest Pantheon? Vengefly King, except there's two of them. That was slick. I feel cool after doing that one. And then I fell off the arena. The thing that amuses me is the fact that the Vengefly King is here implies that... Oh, the arenas are different now. The fact that the Vengefly King is here implies that they, like, consider him a potential god candidate. Which is like, on the one hand, it's kind of cool that they, like, you know, equal opportunity and all that, but if that's the case, why wasn't I invited? And, like, also, like, do they really put him in, like, the same room as Pure Vessel and go, yes, this is a competition, it could go either way? And he's dead. Massive Moss Charger. And he's dead. Hard mode Moss Charger. Oh, are these the Radiant versions of every fight from the boss hall thing? That makes sense. That's cool. And she's not dead. Silksong has not been delayed. Hey, what's up? What Mischief beyond mischief, Yama Fox. We cannot escape thee, even in this highest, most distant of pantheons. O wielder of nail, O eater of soul, are thee a messenger of the gods? Or something stranger? I'm a fox, so yes. We will not defy thee. Continue thy combat. We shall be listening closely. And R.I.P. Gorb. I like Gorb. He makes silly noises. And he's dead. Well, not dead. No defender escapes. Oh, this guy. I like this guy. Like I've mentioned before, but like I'm a huge sucker for spell sword type characters. Like, it's very main character syndrome, but like, it's fun. I like it. Like, haha, I'm good at everything. I'm like a jock with good grades. I didn't actually have to heal there. Oh, Tiso. Did we... Never mind. I presume that's what happened to him in the Colosseum, canonically. Yeah, his corpse is, underneath the Colosseum of Fools on the left-hand side of the wall. If you drop down, you'll find it real easy. Nailmaster Oro. Basically spent the entire game, every like encounter with him, hyping himself up. Then he actually gets to like the Colosseum he's been hunting and just immediately dies. Poor guy. Oro and Mato. I do not want to be between them. And now I'm just sort of like contemplating the thought of being between twin brothers, and anyway. I suppose anything could be palatable with the right framing. Oh, he was the helicopter one. Ow, 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 the box. I thought he was the dash slash one and he was gonna go to Narnia. But we persist. Back to Vengefly King. Speaking of being between twin brothers... he's dead. I like how Vengefly King was like so much of a non-threat that their idea for like how to soup him up for like a rematch is to just throw another one in. And Grossmother is dead. R.I.P. She died as she lived, pregnant. Very greedy of me. But it's fine, because this guy's a walking ATM. I like the implication, actually, that the armor itself has a soul. It's like he's out of it, and then you strike the armor, not him, with the Dream Nail, and you get soul. So like... basically, this might be an Alphonse Elric situation. Fullmetal Alchemist was really good. Like, perfect example of how to do like a hard magic system. Like hard as in like rigidly defined rules and structures rather than like difficult. Like, here's equivalent exchange, and here's all the ways to, like, subvert equivalent exchange, but, like, they make sense. Most of which boil down to, like, get somebody or something else to pay the price. It's all just thermodynamics. It's like, hello, Miss Author, is this magic? Yes, it's actually physics. That bit early on with like the giant pile of gold is one of my formative memories. Like, how about you illegally transfer ownership of all of your slaves to us in exchange for this giant pile of gold? Like, it's not illegal to transmute gold, but, you know, it's also not legal to own slaves, so, like, what if we both just, you know, wink, wink, nudge, nudge each other? And the guy's like, yeah, sure, it sounds like good. Signs the document. Then Ed just turns all the gold back into rock. And the guy's like, what the heck? You scammed me. Like, I'm gonna tell the military about this. And Ed's like, what are you talking about? I have a piece of paper that says that this was freely transferred to me for no compensation. You signed it. I would never transmute gold, that's illegal. Such a good series. I like how an explosion went off at the point where he was trying to teleport to. I never actually did look into what the Full Metal Alchemist author did after Full Metal Alchemist. Part of me just assumes that, like, when somebody writes a really good book, they just kind of stop. Like, I already nailed it. Didn't you read the first one? Like, it's done, tied off with a bow. I don't need to write anymore. I just realized that, because this is a dual boss, technically spells are double value. And he's dead. And I've lost track of which one this is, so I don't know which nail art he'll use. Never mind, it's Mato. I like how I go out of my way to get Salubra's blessing for the Pantheon, and then it's like, oh yeah, there's a hot spring before revenge. And he's dead. Oh, this guy. You know, I just now parsed that this guy's beam is like a nice bright pink. I kinda wish I had that for my ranged attack. Memory serves. The thing that this guy like gate kept was the Desolate Dive spell. Not necessarily useful in this fight, it's just like, oh right, I remember what this guy once did. Something he's done more than once is lose. Something he's done more than once is an attempt to ruse. But I didn't fall for it. 'Cause I'm a fox. I know deceit inside and out, despite being the most trustworthy animal of all. Never trust a fox? We're very trustworthy, though. You can trust us. Mantis Lords. I like this fight. And she's dead. Sisters of Battle? Oh. This is fine, actually. I call shenanigans on the double hit. I need to lock in because I do not have breathing room. Never mind, I got breathing room. This is fine. That was fun. Like, it wasn't anything that I didn't know how to handle, it was just... Oh no. Speaking of things I don't know how to handle... I'm gonna be real, I still don't even properly parse how to handle normal Marmo. It's got like really weird like movement physics. So it seems the trick is to just stab Marmo. I cannot parse this thing as anything other than a joke fight. I was like, even souped up, this thing's still Fluke Marm. R.I.P. Broken Vessel. Alright, Galleon. I struggled with this guy a little bit. Never mind, apparently I don't. I was gonna say, one of my weaknesses is like predicting trajectories of things that move in like consistent manners. Ain't Master Sheo? Aliens thing tracks. That explains why it was so hard to predict the path of. And he's dead.
Vamos. Venda.
Well, that wasn't too bad. Oh, am I just going through the other pantheons in order? That makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah, I think that's what it is. Like, I knew roughly... That was cool, and it wasn't even on purpose. Like, I knew roughly what the Pantheon 5 was going to be like, I just didn't realize it would be like, oh yes, it's the other 4 Pantheons, literally just in order. That's cool, though. Should probably... Wait, what? Did I just iframe through those things with a Great Slash? Or was I just like pixel perfect position between two of them? Because if Great Slash has iframes, that inspires me. Pixel perfect positioning? Yeah, it's something. Also, I just realized the collector doesn't give soul when I hit him. I'm pretty sure vessels give soul on hits, so... Even though he looks like a vessel, I guess he isn't one. Yeah, it might be a void being, but not a vessel. Because, like, he's not Dream, so I can Dream Nail him. Not a fan of these two. Have you tried politely asking God Tamer not to participate in her boss fight? Because, in my experience, she's willing to indulge that. Nightmare King. Or, not Nightmare King, Trip Master. Shoot. Got to get my timings back down. Granted, I think I fought this guy more recently than Nightmare King, so... the adjustment shouldn't be too bad. I just had a thought. Am I going to have to fight Nightmare King for this? I don't think Nightmare King was in any of the Pantheons, actually, so probably not. I think it was just this guy. Unless, like, the last fights are, like, Pure Vessel, then Nightmare King, then Absolute Radiance. Which I could see happening. You try to explain Collector? If you feel like it, go ahead. I appreciate it. I like learning things. And he's dead. Like, I'm pretty sure I'd have him in my journal. Oh, right, oh, never mind. What's up? Sleeping God, we can barely feel thy presence amongst the green left behind. What strength thee once possessed fades beyond time and tune. Sleeping God, to see thee as thou once existed with land and dream and devotion, we would give our mind. I wonder if they're talking about Un. As I had to go and find Un to get Shape of Un. It was like a gigantic slug creature that just kind of like spat the charm at me and then like went away. Such magnificent scale, even in decline. If only they could teach us to grow so large. You know, like, Un was cool, it's just like, I wonder if that's who they're talking about. This area seems very, like, uncoded, so... And I'm pretty sure that was Un sleeping in the background. There are devices in the White Palace, like molds, similarly shaped to Collector and King Mold. So he's probably a creation of the Pale King that escaped and went rogue. And like he probably saw like a bunch of like previous experiments discarded of, so he's like paranoid about seeing other things suffer the same fate, so he safely seals them away. Like, don't worry, little experiments, I'll put you in jars where you belong. As an anime girl, I fear this fate above all others. Okay, this is Zulu. That was exceptionally rude. Actually, I can't criticize. I hit things on spawn all the time. At every opportunity, no less. And he's dead, and I have no soul. But I can get a little cheeky bit of soul by hitting that thing. Probably should have tried dream-mailing it, actually. Silk Song, we meet once again. Considering the interaction / dialogue of him and the bug holding the love key, it seems like he was tasked to do something. I think Smolt's guard to the Palias Collector would probably protect things. Potentially. Yeah, the Collector being a prototype makes a lot of sense. Oh, is this Nosk? That's Nosk. Especially since the Collector doesn't have a vessel. So it's just like a pure entity. It'd be like if our Shade was just on its own. Yeah, this doesn't seem too bad. Except for the parts where I get hit by, like, wing beats. Yeah, true. Maybe Collector is, like, just Pale King, and then, like, the addition of the Pale Lady is, like, what lets them be, like, sane. It's fun to speculate. I wonder how much. Oh no. I wonder how much, if anything, Silk Song actually, like, elaborates on. Because I know that Silk Song takes place in not Hallownest. So I would almost expect it to have, like, vanishingly little to no elaboration on, like, Hallownest stuff. Rude. At least Nosk doesn't do 2 masks of damage. Also, my headset is cutting in and out. I might need to reset it. Sorry, Mods. You're fine. Oh, poor Hornet. Oh no. I am not prepared to fight Yoda with 4 health and no soul. R.I.P. me. That was rough. Also, my headset is, acting up. Let me just reset that real quick. Hopefully that fixes it. Okay, I've got an idea. I'm going to hone my mind and body by facing a power greater than any other. Zote the Mighty. Another fool to be cut down by Life Ender. Oh. Thank you for the hydration. And ow, the bonking. The eternal ordeal. I like how it's like an a cappella Zote remix of the battle theme. I read that as luring blanket at first, and I was like, oh, you're trying to lure me under a blanket? Is it warm? It might work. My toes are cold. Which is potentially concerning, because I am wearing 2 layers of socks. You know, there's some characters that I just presume are like really fun to voice, and I feel like Zote is one of them. Must be very satisfying. Zote's not enough of a presence to really take a lot of satisfaction in beating the crap out of him. But he is kind of a dick, so yeah. Oh, that's a very big Zote. Alright then. So technically this does go on forever, but there is a target to reach. You assume this was like a you assume this was a likable gag character? No, he's nobody likes Zote. Only Zote likes Zote. Like his entire thing is that he's just like a incredibly self-absorbed, like just total jackass with really no redeeming qualities, like not even a hidden heart of gold. That said, he is willing to disclose his life philosophy to anybody who'll listen. And it is very much a solid recipe for being very, very lonely for your entire life. Like, friends are just enemies that haven't betrayed you yet. Stuff like that. Like, never do anything unless you're completely certain you're gonna succeed. There's the big one again. Don't think too hard thinking it's a kill. Okay, to be fair, that one does kind of check out. That could be like a precept of Fox. Yeah, if you don't have dreams, the Radiants can't get you. That is the thing. Oh, that's like a reverse Salubra's out. It like sucks my soul away, presumably. I didn't actually verify before killing it. That was the wrong button. I have been defeated. However, I have conquered the Eternal Ordeal. I defeated 57 Zotes, one for each precept. Which has consequences. In honor of this achievement. Hold that thought. I think I need to leave the dream before I can teleport. You're supposed to have left as an achievement. If somebody didn't have a guide, how would they ever find that? Oh, I thought you were dead. What's up? Hallowed land tomb gods. Wait, no, wait. I was like, I wonder what she's thinking. That's how you get in. Oh, what's up? Creeper, did thee wake us? Revived this kingdom, these gods, tuned and bested, gleaming in mind, bright, sharp. And this, our form swells, large, nay, immense, majestic hibernation, so long forced upon us, yet the shell that results is strong, so strong. Thine gaze is adoring, ye must think us godly, amusing, foolish, but thou art faced with enormity and beauty, true. Hallownest, even fading, a glorious night of gods. Whoops. Never, never, the gods here will never die. I was actually gonna go and, listen to the precepts of Zote. Precept 1 was always win your battles. Precept 2, never let them laugh at you. Fools laugh at everything, even their superiors. But beware, laughter isn't harmless. Laughter spreads like a disease, and soon everybody is laughing at you. You need to strike at the source of this perverse merriment quickly to stop it from spreading. Basically, if people are having a good time, tell them to stop it. Precept 3, always be rested. Fighting and adventuring take their toll on your body. When you rest, your body strengthens and repairs itself. The longer you rest, the stronger you become. Precept 4, forget your past. The past is painful, and thinking about your past can only bring you misery. Think about something else instead, such as the future or some food. Precept 5, strength beats strength. Is your opponent strong? No matter, simply overcome their strength with even more strength and they'll soon be defeated. Precept 6, choose your own fate. Our elders teach that our fate is chosen for us before we are even born. I disagree. Precept 7. Mourn not the dead. When we die, do things get better for us or worse? There's no way to tell, so we shouldn't bother mourning, or celebrating for that matter. Precept 8. Travel alone. You can rely on nobody and nobody will always be loyal. Therefore, nobody should be your constant companion. Precept 9. Keep your home tidy. Your home is where you keep your most prized possession, yourself. Therefore, you should make an effort to keep it nice and clean. Precept 10. Keep your weapon sharp. I make sure that my weapon, Life Ender, is kept well sharpened at all times. This makes it much easier to cut things. Precept 11. Mothers will always betray you. This precept explains itself. Precept 12. Keep your cloak dry. If your cloak gets wet, dry it as soon as you can. Wearing wet cloaks is unpleasant and can lead to illness. Precept 13. Never be afraid. Fear can only hold you back. Facing your fears can be a tremendous effort. Therefore, you should just not be afraid in the first place. Precept 14. Respect your superiors. If somebody is your superior in strength or intellect or both, you need to show them respect. Don't ignore them or laugh at them. Precept 15. One foe, one blow. You should only use a single blow to defeat an enemy. Any more is a waste. Also, by counting your blows as you fight, you'll know how many foes you defeated. Precept 16. Don't hesitate. Once you've made a decision, carry it out and don't look back. You'll achieve much more this way. Precept 17. Believe in your strength. Others may doubt you, but there's somebody you can always trust, yourself. Make sure to believe in your own strength and you will never falter. Precept 18. Seek truth in the darkness. This precept also explains itself. Precept 19. If you try, succeed. If you're going to attempt something, make sure you achieve it. If you do not succeed, then you have actually failed. Avoid this at all costs. Precept 20. Speak only the truth. When speaking to somebody, it is courteous and also efficient to speak truthfully. Beware, though, that speaking truthfully may make you enemies. It's something you'll have to bear. Precept 21. Be aware of your surroundings. Don't just walk along staring at the ground. You need to look up every so often to make sure nothing takes you by surprise. Precept 22. Abandon the nest. As soon as I could, I left my birthplace and made my way out into the world. Do not linger in the nest. There is nothing for you there. Precept 23. Identify the foe's weak point. Every foe you encounter has a weak point, such as a crack in their shell or being asleep. You must constantly be alert and scrutinizing your enemy to detect their weakness. Precept 24. Strike the foe's weak point. Once you have identified your foe's weak point, as per the previous precept, strike it. This will instantly destroy them. Precept 25. Protect your own weak point. Be aware that your foe will try to identify your weak point, so you must protect it. The best protection? Never having a weak point in the first place. Precept 26. Do not trust your reflection. When peering at certain shining surfaces, you may see a copy of your own face. The face will mimic your movements and seem similar to your own, but I don't think it can be trusted. Precept 27. Eat as much as you can. When having a meal, eat as much as you possibly can. This gives you extra energy out my bones. But I covered my weakness, and therefore I lived. When having a meal, eat as much as you possibly can. This gives you extra energy and means you can eat less frequently. Precept 28. Do not peer into darkness. If you peer into the darkness and can't see anything for too long, your mind will start to linger over old memories. Memories are to be avoided, as per Precept 4. Precept 29. Develop your sense of direction. It's easy to get lost when traveling through winding, twisting caverns. Having a good sense of direction is like having a magical map inside of your head. Very useful. Precept 30. Never accept a promise. Spurn the promises of others as they are always broken. Promises of love or betrothal are to be avoided especially. Precept 31. Disease lives inside of dirt. You'll get sick if you spend too much time in filthy places. If you are staying in somebody else's home, demand the highest level of cleanliness from your host. Precept 32. Names have power. Names have power, and to name something is granted power. I myself named my nail Life Ender. Do not steal the name I came up with. Invent your own. Precept 33. Show the enemy no respect. Being gallant to your enemies is no virtue. If somebody opposes you, they don't deserve respect or kindness or mercy. Precept 34. Do not eat immediately before sleeping. This can cause restlessness and indigestion. It's just common sense. Precept 35. Up is up, down is down. If you fall over in the darkness, it can be easy to lose your bearing and forget which way is up. Keep this precept in mind. Precept 36. Eggshells are brittle. Once again, this precept explains itself. Precept 37. Borrow but do not lend. If you lend and are repaid, you gain nothing. If you borrow but do not repay, you gain everything. Precept 38. Beware the mysterious force. A mysterious force bears down on us from above, pushing us downwards. If you spend too long in the air, the force will crush you against the ground or destroy you. Beware. Precept 39. Eat quickly and drink slowly. Your body is a delicate thing and you must feel it with great deliberation. Food must go in as fast as possible, but fluids at a slower rate. Precept 40. Obey no law but your own. Laws written by others may inconvenience you or be a burden. Let your own desires be the only law. Precept 41. Learn to detect lies. When others speak, they usually lie. Scrutinize and question them relentlessly until they reveal their deceit. Precept 42. Spend Geo when you have it. Some will cling onto their Geo, even taking it into the dirt with them when they die. It is better to spend it when you can, so you can enjoy various things in life. Precept 43. Never forgive. If somebody asks forgiveness of you, for instance a brother of yours, always deny it. That brother, or whoever it is, doesn't deserve such a thing. Precept 44. You cannot breathe water. Water is refreshing, but if you try to breathe it, you're in for a nasty shock. Precept 45. One thing is not another. This one should be obvious, but I've had others try to argue that one thing which is clearly what it is and not something else is actually some other thing which it isn't. Stay on your guard. Precept 46. The world is smaller than you think. When young, you tend to think that the world is vast, huge, gigantic. It's only natural. Unfortunately, it's actually quite a lot smaller than that. I can now say this, now having traveled everywhere in the land. Precept 47. Make your own weapon. Only you know exactly what is needed in your weapon. I myself fashioned Life Ender from shellwood at a young age. It has never failed me, nor I it. Precept 48. Be careful with fire. Fire is a type of hot spirit that dances about recklessly. It can warm you and provide light, but it will also singe your shell if it gets too close. Precept 49. Statues are meaningless. Do not honor them. Nobody has ever made a statue of you or I, so why should we pay them any attention? Precept 50. Do not linger on mysteries. Some things in this world appear to us as puzzles or enigmas. If the meaning behind something is not immediately evident, though, do not waste any time thinking about it, just move on. Precept 51. Nothing is harmless. Given the chance, everything in this world will hurt you. Friends, foes, monsters, uneven paths. Be suspicious of them all. Precept 52. Beware the jealousy of fathers. Fathers believe that because they created us, we must serve them and never exceed their capabilities. If you wish to forge your own path, you must vanquish your father, or simply abandon him. Precept 53. Do not steal the desires of others. Every creature keeps their desires locked up inside of themselves. If you catch a glimpse of another's desires, resist the urge to claim them as your own. It will not lead you to happiness. Precept 54. If you lock something away, keep the key. Nothing should be locked away forever, so hold on to your keys. You will eventually return and unlock everything you hid away. Precept 55. Bow to no one. There are those in this world who would impose their will on others. They claim ownership over your food, your land, your body, even your thoughts. They have done nothing to earn these things. Never bow to them, and make sure to disobey their commands. Ironically, that was probably why he's not fallen to the Radiance. Precept 56. Do not dream. That one also. Dreams are dangerous things. Strange ideas not your own can worm their way into your mind. But if you resist those ideas, sickness will rack your body. Best to not dream at all, like me. Precept 57. Obey all precepts. Most importantly, you must commit all of these precepts to memory and obey them all unfailingly, including this one. Have you truly listened to everything I've said? Let's start again and repeat the 57 precepts of Zod. That said, the reward for completing the Eternal Ordeal is I get this Bengu theme. Thank you for the headpats. On this note, I think we're going to call it there for the night. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it each and every time. Next scheduled stream is on Wednesday. I'll probably be doing the Ocarina of Time Randomizer again. Next time I'm playing Hollow Knight will either be on Friday or perhaps sometime before that, given that the only thing left to do is the Pantheon of Hallownest, and I don't know how long that'll take. I hope you have an absolutely wonderful night, and I hope to see you again. Good night.
Bara,